You killed a man on company grounds, Jonathan. You leave me no choice but to declare you excommunicado. The doors to any service or provider in connection with the Continental are now closed to you.
What is excommunicado? Is it just a cool way for millennials to say farewell just because it sounds like an avocado? Is it how you say you're banished with a bounty on your head in Spanish? Or maybe it's just a John Wick thing and it goes so well with the theme of the show. 'Cause hey, it sounds so mysterious and unique. My answers to these questions are maybe, surprisingly no, and yes, but take note, this is the perspective from someone who's only seen the movies and read the comics, so I'm gonna be blind as to what some books have on this topic, assuming that there are books in the first place. Although, this franchise does have a video game as well. So, John Wick was released on 2014, back then the term millennial was not as popular as it is today, but it does refer to a generation that was born a decade or two before that year, so this is why the answer to the first question is a maybe, because potentially, the writers and producers might not know what millennials are in the first place. After all, when you go out of your way to add something that appeals to a generation, you have to at least know what that generation wants to begin with. If that's the case, then you might wonder why I'm somewhat sure that the word was just added later on, rather than it being part of the original story. You see, technically in the first movie, the word excommunicado was never uttered at all, even the comics doesn't have it either, they just say, oh they're in trouble now, or well, you broke the rules, now your life is forfeit. It should have been easier to just say that you are excommunicado, but they didn't. It's as if the word never existed. It was still cool how Winston just says this line.
Miss Perkins, your membership to the Continental has been by thine own hand revoked.
So if Ian McShane could pull off those lines so perfectly, I believe that the word excommunicado was just unnecessary. Then again, it is easier to have one word for being banished with a bounty on your head, since not everyone's going to be Ian McShane, hence this reasoning might just make this video pointless, because realistically this might be the actual reason why the word exists, although, most of the cast were part of the Matrix movie, and they could pull off a virtual reality scene where there's an army of Winstons. Oh, where was I? Oh yes. The proof that the word was just added later on is in chapter 2 when that word was finally mentioned, and guess what year that movie was released? Lo and behold, when John himself broke the rules of the Continental, the movie was released in 2017. At that time, the term millennial was already common knowledge, and the phenomenon that was tied to this generation was the popularity of memes. So the theory that this word was made for millennials might not be far-fetched after all. I think the writers and producers of this franchise were hoping that the word excommunicado would be eccentric enough that a generation would make memes about it, and memes in a business perspective is actually the cheapest marketing tool you could ever use in this day and age, especially because it is free. Now, why should this word rhyme with an avocado? They could have said excommunicado, which could potentially appeal to anime enthusiasts with the extensive knowledge of cicadas, or excommunicat for those history buffs out there with a hard-on for the resurgence of the Roman Empire, or excommunicaki just to be more weird about it, so on and so forth. Well, it just so happens that healthy living is also popular with millennials. Hey, I'm spitballing here, so take this explanation with a sack of salt. Long gone are the days of chugging junk food and concentrated sugars down our throats. Having a healthier appearance and posting your selfies on Facebook and Instagram has been a thing for years now, and to some extent it has become lucrative as well, although, in a movie that kills a lot of people, I guess it's safe to say that this word was not made to appeal to strict vegans. So making an eccentric word that's somewhat familiar to your target audience while making it blend with the theme of the show was really smart of them to do, assuming that was the plan. So with all those points, why is this not a yes, this was made for millennials in the first place? Well, you see, this marketing ploy didn't work. Of course, this is assuming that it was a marketing ploy. The word wasn't meme-worthy enough. Heck, it doesn't even have a Know Your Meme page, and it never even made it to PewDiePie's meme review series. Instead, what happened was that Keanu Reeves' existence made the show popular.
You're breathtaking! You're breathtaking! You're all breathtaking!
It was his personality and real-life story that caught the attention of the audience, and in the movies, the writers actually made a rich world that balances subtleness and overtly over-the-top action that most of us enjoyed. So, as much as I want to double down on this hunch, there's just not enough points that could actually support this. Next is the language theory. When you try and look for this word, you'll see no such word in a dictionary, but technically, it's still a legitimate word since it's supposed to be the combination of the Spanish word incommunicado, which means you are barred from communicating with others, and the English word excommunication. So you could actually say that this is a Spanglish word, but I don't recommend using this in a Scrabble tournament since it's considered to be slang. You could also argue that some experts are just hiding some tome or a stone tablet somewhere which contains that word. Heck, maybe the Pope uses it from time to time, but unfortunately I don't have the resources to ask such things from those people, but if you ever get a reply from Pope Francis, please give me a call. Also, function-wise, when you think about it, there really is a difference between excommunication and excommunicado. When you are excommunicated, it means that you are not welcomed in the church anymore, and by the God-given power invested in your religious leader, your soul is not permitted to enter the afterlife. Throughout history as well, when someone gets excommunicated, they'll either receive a message that says so, or hear an announcement from the Pope who is in the comfort of his palace, away from conflict and retaliation, so not even monarchs at that time could easily act like John Wick when they break the rules. In the movies, excommunicado needed to be said in front of someone's face, by the leader in question, which is very risky, and probably very stupid to do. Although, Winston may not be the one with the highest authority in their cult-like organization, and sure, people in his position have guards that can keep them safe, but phones exist for a reason, and the guards themselves not only act as protectors, but executioners as well, which is a major difference from just barring someone from their church. Well, back then some popes were actually inclined to send their armies to the one who got excommunicated, but that was more of an optional course of action, whereas in the movies, excommunicado was portrayed as an obligation that the invoker had to fulfill.
Instead of stopping him, instead of killing him, you stood by and let him walk away after he shot Santino D'Antonio in front of you.
I made him excommunicado.
But not before you gave him an hour to escape.
Excommunicado in a sense is more of a death sentence, unlike being excommunicated. This is why surprisingly the answer to the second question is no. The words almost sound and look the same, but the process and execution in enforcing the meaning of these words are very different. Lastly, is this word just a John Wick thing? Was I just overthinking it by the end of the day? Well, regardless of whether or not there's any truth as to what the first and second answers pointed out, there's one thing that I'm sure of. These three movies have been so good, and I'm also excited as to when the next movie comes out. No matter what it is, or where it came from, excommunicado successfully became a John Wick thing. When you hear the word, you don't think of Spain, or the Pope, or just some word that means banishment, you think of the movies instead, and the journey that John Wick has to go through, which is still ongoing.
How do you feel? 'Cause I am really pissed off. You pissed, John? Are you? Yeah.
In fact, I never even heard of the word before, until just last year. So yes, by the end of the day, I do believe that this word is a John Wick thing. Well, the most reasonable assumption really was to make it easy for everyone to describe John's predicament with one word.
John Wick, excommunicado, in effect 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
But he's excommunicado.
You're excommunicado, John.
And your excommunicado will be reversed.
He's excommunicado.
Unless you wish to become the same, I suggest you lower your gun.
Since not everyone is Ian McShane.
But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory.
Disclaimer, this is not a film theory episode from MatPat's channel, but still, thanks for watching.